I'd like to introduce you to Dr. Ralf Kleef. Dr. Kleef, thank you so much for your time today, sir.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
It is my pleasure, sir, an honor. In fact, I want to point people out to your website, integrativeimmune-oncology.com, and please go and visit that. Dr. Kleef, you're doing amazing work. And of course, aside from your name and the stories I've heard from Diana, seeing you in her film was so powerful. It was like the whole tone of the film changed. It was very dark and it was very sad, and it was a lot going on. And then you made an appearance, and you were dressed in white, and the walls are white, and there's sunlight everywhere. And it's really, like I said, it changed the tone of the film, but it also, I think, represents how you were for Diana. You were that bright light when she had nothing to hope for at that time.
Yeah, honestly, when you meet a patient and you can never know what will happen. So I'm always more skeptic than I'm pessimistic in terms of what I think what I can do. But when I feel that the patient is clear as a crystal inside, like a diamond inside, that she will and wants to beat this challenge what a cancer diagnosis poses for every human being, then I know we can work together. So I think the most important point to start with is always the patient, him or herself, whether this decision has been made clearly. I will survive.
Yes, yes. Where your mind is at is truly, truly important. And I also think just you have such a way about you of inspiring confidence in people. You don't seem rattled, you don't seem shaken by these things. And you've spent so much time dealing with cancer and other issues. Can you talk a little bit about how you got your start?
Yeah, I went to a medical school which had a background in anthroposophical medicine. Rudolf Steiner, who invented the Waldorf schools and the mistletoe therapy. And already as a medical student, I was drawn towards this phenomenon of cancer. When you're medical student, you don't really understand much about it. But then when I finished my medical studies, I was lucky that my destiny led me to the first clinic which had employed hyperthermia. And when I came to that clinic, I immediately felt this is what I want to do. And that's what I have been doing now, exactly 30 years now. And I feel very blessed that I went that path. It wasn't an easy path because you are a little bit like a lonely wolf. You're not howling with the wolves. But one of my teachers always used to say, only dead fish swim with the current, and I was swimming upstream, so to speak. I started in 1985. My medical studies started. Before that, I was a male nurse in a spinal injury department, and when we studied, HIV or AIDS was discovered for the first time. So that's when immunology actually came into existence in the medical world. And 6 years later, 1991, when I started in that hyperthermia clinic, immunology already had picking up space and pace. But only in about 2015, when the so-called checkpoint inhibitors came on the market, we also saw something what I would call a breakthrough, that we have seen much, much better results than we have ever seen before. So Diana was one of those patients who had this breakthrough treatment. She was even before that. I think she must have been treated by me. When was it? Was it 2013, 14?
Right about that, yeah. 2012, 2013. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wow.
Right.
That's amazing. Can you talk a little bit about your process? Describe immunotherapy, hyperthermia?
Give me a very quick hint. Do we have 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, so I know how extensive I can speak?
About 30 minutes total.
Okay. Thank you.
Maximum. So
Yeah. I mean, I don't know, the people who are watching this film probably are not medical doctors, so I should more speak to the lay person and describe our idea. For decades, oncology used to employ chemo, surgery, and radiation as the three main pillars, and I think immunology nowadays is clearly the fourth pillar, not only in my world but also in all the classical cancer centers. You know, the big ones like Sloan Kettering or Mayo Clinic or MD Anderson Cancer Center. So the whole world is actually really understanding that the cure in cancer is only possible when you achieve a lasting immunological response with an immunological memory. Now, classical therapy, like chemotherapy, like hormonal therapy, like the so-called targeted therapy, where you give very specific drugs like Herceptin to block certain receptors, they all can play and do play a big role in inducing what we call immunogenic cell death. So we should be able to kill a couple of cancer cells, which then would release antigens into the system, which then can be picked up by dendritic cells and macrophages to initiate the presentation of these antigens towards our killer T cells, the CD8 cells. Also, radiation nowadays can be looked as a method where it's not only about to radiate a given tumor to kill it completely, but to do something called immunogenic radiation. And I think that's why the windows in time are very important when you do what. If you first have a successful eradication of a cancer with one of the classical methods, and you already in the beginning, not after half a year, in the beginning, initiate processes like hyperthermia, like immunotherapy, also like mistletoe therapy, and try to stimulate the immune system of the patients right in the beginning, then you can have success. The problem in classical mainstream oncology has been and still is that they say, yeah, we can do this alternative whatever treatment, immunotherapy, but first let's do the classical way. And I think that's a big mistake. Mm. So if we combine that in the right windows in time from the beginning, you can have much bigger success. The whole topic is much too broad to press into 30 minutes. But it's basically the idea to teach your immune system to recognize cancer cells. Now, cancer cells are not foreign invaders like a virus or like a bacteria. It's your own body cells. That's why the immune system in the first place has a difficulty to see the cancer cells as something what should be attacked. And that's why immunogenic cell death can or does play such a big role in inducing a proper immune response. And nowadays, we must speak about these checkpoint inhibitors, which came on the market in 2015, was a Nobel Prize 2018 for Jim Allison, who discovered CTLA-4, and the Japanese scientists discovered the PD-L1. PD-1 inhibition. Now, these checkpoint inhibitors made a real difference in treating cancer. However, it's only about 20% of the patients who really benefit from them. About 25% of patients have severe side effects, and anywhere between 1 to 2% of patients, 100%, probably even more towards 2% of patients die from the checkpoint inhibitors, from those substances which take the brake of the immune system and activate your T cells. And then your T cells can go berserk and induce something what is called pneumonitis, like a life-dangerous cytokine storm in the lung, such as happening with COVID, or like a severe colitis. So when those checkpoint inhibitors came on the market, they are extremely expensive. I mean, in melanoma, a combination therapy of ipilimumab and nivolumab can be like easily $400,000, $500,000 per patient per year. And then I thought, okay, why don't we use these new substances in a way that we use them in a safe way and combine them together with hyperthermia, and I'm going to talk about that now, with fever therapy. So the synergy can be super additive, and we talked about that with very clever molecular biologists from Bristol Myers Squibb, for example, and they were very interested, but they predicted this cannot work because the dosages are too low. And we proved them wrong. We now have done this special protocol for more than 6 years. We have treated more than 250 patients with this protocol, and recently we got accepted for publication in a major immunology journal, where we retrospectively looked at 131 stage 4 cancer patients, and we could show that in many hopeless cases, we were able to induce a lasting objective response rate of 31%, which is a lot. Normally, it is much less. And we have a couple of, a few dozen of single cases which we have started presenting on the international conferences, which really show the proof. For example, triple negative breast cancer, or also hormonal receptor breast cancer, we could show this went into complete remission. Interestingly, lung metastasis seem to fare better than liver metastasis, but we also had patients with liver mets who went into complete remission. Wow. But what we then discovered was really fascinating, and I have to tell the audience a little bit about my background. When I was in New York City, I introduced myself to Helen Cooley-Nortz. Helen Cooley-Nortz was at that time way in her 70s, maybe 76, 77, a very accomplished lady who got an honorary doctor from Rockefeller University for documenting the life work of her father, William B. Cooley, who was one of the leading bone surgeons at Sloan Kettering Cancer Center in the late 19th century, 1880 till 1930. That was his active career. And Cooley is named, you can look that up in Wikipedia, the father of cancer immunotherapy. So Cooley operated a sarcoma of a young girl. She was 16 years old. She was the fiancée of a young Rockefeller, and she had a sarcoma, and 6 months later she died with lung metastasis, and she was completely frustrated with that result and said, I can't chopping off limbs and then see the patients die later. And he therefore started looking for other reports, and he found a case of a patient, this famous patient, Mr. Harvey Stein, who had a huge head and neck cancer, was the size of a grapefruit, who had then contracted an erysipelas infection, erysipelas with streptococcus, and he got a very high fever, and this big cancer vanished. And then he said, okay, so fever obviously induced by bacteria seems to be a good thing. So the word immune system didn't exist back in that time, but some inner force within the body. So what Cooley did for 40, 50 years, injected bacterial vaccines into thousands of patients, and his results were better than anybody of us, including myself. He was a real pioneer, and he was heavily criticized at his time as well, because radiation just was developing. And I then met Helen Cooley-Nortz, and we became friends instantly. And I became a stipendiate of the Cancer Research Institute, which was founded by Helen Cooley-Nortz and Lloyd Old, Lloyd Old was the director of the Ludwig Institute and the Sloan Kettering Cancer Laboratory and the immunology, and of course the Cancer Research Institute. And so this encounter was very important in my life to understand about this idea of fever therapy. And then nearly 25 years later, I discovered that a drug called interleukin-2, which has been licensed for melanoma and renal cell cancer, which is a very, very powerful but also very dangerous drug, which can, normally every patient end up in intensive care, even being intubated, because that's such a strong, powerful drug. It stimulates your T cells. And then we realized that this drug actually has one strong side effect. And guess what it was?
What?
Fever.
Oh.
And then I thought, why don't we use those checkpoint inhibitors in a low dosage and combine it with a low dosage of the interleukin-2, but allow the patient to have a fever. And that was actually, I think, the birth of what we now call our special breakthrough treatment. And I'm going to show that if this here, this is I'm trying to get my car key. If this is a T cell Ferrari, that's my car key. And if you deblock the brakes of that Ferrari, then it can roll. And then you go to the gas station and put in your tank gasoline, and that's IL-2. So this T cell Ferrari is ready to race. And the race track is fever. That's to be understood. And we have been developing this now for 6 years. We did a few hundred treatments. And we are very, very happy about having found that combination, because I think this will be, at least as long as I can live and develop that treatment, maybe will be an important step in cancer therapy.
It's incredible. Absolutely incredible. I love the idea that initially this treatment started before the advent of radiation and other things, that we're almost going full circle, going back to the way it was.
It's like a circle is closing. That's what I always said. In many aspects, also with who I was blessed to meet. Imagine, this was when I met Helen Coulinot. There was no internet on the planet. Can you imagine a world without mobile phones and a world without internet? This was 1994. Some rich guy had some huge mobile phones and played them off, but we normal people didn't have iPhones and or handies, mobile phones, and there was no internet. So I had to find in the good old yellow telephone book, looked for the name Helen Coulinot, and I rang her up in her huge rundown apartment in Park Avenue and introduced myself, and that's how it all. So, when the other guys went surfing in the summer, I was sitting with Helen in a summer house in Connecticut, discussing the life work of her father. And it was actually Ralf Moss who introduced me. Helen Coulinot, she introduced me to Ralf Moss, and Ralf Moss has been a really great friend and comrade in arms. He's probably one of the best or the best medical journalists, taking a very critical look at mainstream oncology. His first bestseller was written in the late 80s, called The Cancer Industry. And he recently also did a film called The Battle Within. I'm also in that film, where he shows the power of the immune system. So I think we have to learn the immense power, the healing power within, and that we doctors and scientists have to learn how to carefully modulate that powerful system, because cure is really only available or possible with an immunological approach. A quick word about digestion and food. I also believe that that plays a major role. There are certain foods which stimulate a healthy gut microbiota, a healthy gut microbiome, because humans consist of 10 billion cells, but inside here in the gut we have 100 billion bacteria. So that is very important to eat things like chicory. When people are losing weight, it's very important to eat chicken broth with ginger, the good old chicken broth, very important, or to have things like avocado with lemon juice, things like that are very, very important. And again, remember what I told you in the very beginning. I want to touch quickly the work of Kelly Turner, who wrote this book, Radical Remission. She interviewed 250 stage 4 patients who all had the prognosis that they would never make it, but they all made it. And she identified these 9 points, which were common in this group. And 2 points was good chemoradiation or good immunotherapy, but 7 other points were within the beautiful soul and mind and heart of the people, which also has to do with the support network, with the caregivers and all that. So I think, I don't know whether I will get cancer in my life one day. I'm not afraid of it, because I think what cancer teaches you, and I'm not a specialist in cancer because I don't have it. Every patient is a specialist. But what it really teaches you to fully love yourself, to fully embrace yourself, and to understand that we are mortal beings. One day we will all go to our Creator, and then there will be one question. And the question is, did you love? And Jesus said, love each other like you love yourself. So this is why I think we are here for a mission. And I think I met many cancer patients who got broke from the cancer, who also died from the cancer, but I also met the same amount of people who said cancer is the best thing what happened to me in my life. I changed my life. I woke up, like a wake up call. I also met Larry LeChamp, this famous psycho-oncologist who wrote his famous book Cancer as a Turning Point in 1985. We did meditation retreats with him back when I was up in New York doing my postdoc at Sloan Kettering. So that is also very important. The challenge and the trick is you get the diagnosis and this shock goes through all your being, and then in that shock you shall certainly find this test for life and this meaning for life. And so that's a tricky thing. That's why I think it is very important that immediately within the first day, a great strong support network stands up like one man and say, hey, we're here, we are behind you, we will support you, you're not alone. And that's why I also recommend for all patients to, of course, search this support. It doesn't mean you need to go to a shrink, and no cancer patient is responsible for his or her illness. It's more about to activate your own healing processes within.
It's brilliantly said, sir. I could not agree with you more. This is such a real honor for me, and I know it is for everyone getting the privilege to be able to hear you speak today. Your website is Integrative Immune Oncology, and people can go there, they can interact with you, they can read up on all the processes that you guys do. Is that correct?
Yeah, we have for the viewer, we have an interesting situation. Just a few months ago, we decided to relocate our clinic from the beautiful city of Vienna to the equally beautiful city of Budapest for a couple of reasons. The most important reason is that I can run a clinic there. And in Vienna, they always try to keep me down and, didn't allow me to really prosper and make a big thing. And in Budapest, we have the honor that the world famous Semmelweis University, which produced many Nobel Prize winners. They invited us for a full cooperation. So we are in the process of establishing all that. We brought the whole hyperthermia department. Oh, we didn't talk about hyperthermia. we should touch hyperthermia also quickly. So my whole hyperthermia department is built up there and ready to go. And of course, we sincerely plan to also do more scientific work to document our approach to the scientific community.
Yeah.
Now, hyperthermia, a quick thing about it. Hyperthermia is there is a local regional hyperthermia and whole body hyperthermia. Both play an enormous role in our therapy concept. Local regional hyperthermia means that you try to bring heat locally to a tumor. Personally, I believe that very often we are only able, because of very complex biological phenomenon, to achieve a fever-like local temperature within a tumor, like in a liver metastasis and so on. If somebody has a breast cancer, it's easy to really achieve much higher temperatures. And for example, in breast cancer, women newly diagnosed with breast cancer, I strongly advise against immediate operation, but this woman should have a short period, 4 weeks, that's enough, of intense local regional hyperthermia to induce a heat shock protein response to treat the tumor as its own vaccine in the own body. And then she can go for operation or neoadjuvant chemotherapy. Neoadjuvant chemotherapy also can be, neoadjuvant means chemo before the operation. Then she can go for further things. Also, hyperthermia is a strong support in radiation therapy, both in efficacy and reducing side effects. Now, whole body hyperthermia is a fever range hyperthermia, where we induce a fever with special water filtered infrared technology, with fantastic devices. There's a group at Rochelle Cancer Park Center, headed by Elizabeth Rapowski, who since more than 30 years is only studying fever range whole body hyperthermia in a mouse model, but she also did the first human studies. So there's a huge amount of literature on the beneficial effects of mimicking fever in the human body with means of external hyperthermia. And to close the circle again, remember what I told you about IL-2. There again, we are looking at inducing a mild to moderate to strong fever, anywhere between 38 and 40 degrees Celsius. You guys have Fahrenheit, I think it's 106. It can be going up to 106, which of course needs very, very good monitoring. And we have seen that how whole body hyperthermia can also be a fantastic thing to do to effectively treat depression and cancer fatigue. Cancer patients, if they go through these months-long procedures of chemo and radiation, often can be quite exhausted and depressive. So once a week a hyperthermia session, sometimes even only for an hour, can be of extreme benefit.
That's amazing. Absolutely amazing. Well,
that means in the moment we are still having offices in the city of Vienna, but also in Budapest. We will the process of registration and authorization in Budapest, due to this Corona panic, has been slowed down, and that's why our web page still doesn't show the whole Budapest clinic, but it will show it very soon.
I think that's amazing, and I want to step out here for a second, Dr. Kleef, because a very special guest has just walked in.
Hello. Hey, good to see you. Oh my God, I wish I could give you a hug now. You look beautiful like always.
Oh, thank you. So are you. You're just so beautiful.
A beautiful heart and in a beautiful mind, in a beautiful body. You are wonderful, Diana. Oh. You're so special.
Oh
my God.
Thank you.
How many years has it been that you have been treated? 6, 7?
9 years.
Oh, 9 years. Time travels fast. Yes.
I know. Well, we got
My
to
daughter was
celebrate 10,
1 then.
right? I'm sorry.
Huh?
I said
Yeah?
we have to celebrate 10. When we
You have
hit
to say
10,
what?
we'll have to celebrate at 10.
Yes, yes, we will. Oh, we definitely will. And yeah, you made this amazing film, the unbelievable plight of Diana, right? I'm sure it was a big international success.
It's
Was it?
I, it really has been a wonderful, wonderful experience. And thank you so much for being in it. You know, we're at 70 film festivals. We won
It
70.
was. It was. If this is this still recorded now?
Oh, yes. So Gravitas.
So to the viewer, what happened? I mean, Diana was treated obviously 9 years ago, and I mean, I've never forgotten about her. But we didn't have much contact over years, and then 5 years into her complete remission, suddenly we were contacted by professional filmmakers from Hollywood who said, "Hey, we would like to make a film about the story of the unbelievable plight of Mrs. Wright. Can we come and make a film with you? I mean, not only with me, but can we include you in that film?" And that's what happened. It was so funny. I was really, really impressed with this idea. Fantastic.
Oh, yes. And that's what we're doing today. We're sharing our knowledge. We're sharing what you and I might have learned on the way. We're sharing
Yeah, and
what
and
we
then
learned
and
about it.
then and then I mean, you're a registered nurse, and then um, after this diagnosis, you actually turned and studied to become a naturopathic doctor of
That's,
oncology,
that's
integrative oncology.
yeah. Yeah, and
Yeah,
that's
America
right.
has a great a big group, many thousands of integrative naturopathic oncologists. Their association is called ONCNAM, Oncology Naturopathic Oncology Physicians of America,
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah.
And we met in
Yes,
San
we
Diego
did.
in the February of 2019, I think it was.
I think
Yeah.
it was. And you were a wonderful speaker. You did a wonderful job. I was so proud of you.
Yeah, yeah. Normally I'm only used to these conferences where medical doctors and scientists are sitting around, and it's kind of a tense and not so happy atmosphere. And here in this conference with a few hundred naturopathic oncologists, there was much more fun, and people were much more alert, and there were more the discussion. I really liked it.
It was a
It was
lot
great.
different atmosphere. So
Yeah,
now I
absolutely.
understand you have moved to Hungary
Yes, just recently we
and
we
you're
found we found a huge clinic. It's so fantastic. We're so happy. I mean, you should. We still haven't it up on the website because we're still in the process of getting everything authorized and registered with the authorities. And that with Corona is the Corona hype, I would like to say, is quite difficult. Um, but soon our website hopefully will be open, and then people can see this wonderful clinic. It's my life work um, culminated in a real big clinic which we can run now. Thanks to my wife, she's such a fantastic nurse. Christina, my wife, she's always standing in front of the patient, and she's doing one thing. She says, "Everything will be good." Yeah, yeah.
oh,
This place is amazing. We are very happy to be able to use it, and actually, we will also use it in the post-COVID treatment now, because we have seen that patients with post-COVID, the main symptom is fatigue, severe fatigue, even for young sports people, and also lung problems and depressions. So hypothermia can be a fantastic treatment with that.
oh, wonderful. That is
Yeah,
wonderful to know. Because I think what we're going to see, even with the immunizations, I was just listening to a podcast on my way over here, as that within the next few years, we'll see more problems coming out
I
long-term
think
health.
these vaccinations, I think the Chinese vaccination and the Russian Sputnik may be somewhat more safe, but the messenger RNA vaccination, I'm very, very skeptical of what that is doing. And we never hear in the world community about how we can protect ourselves against this coronavirus. Yes, it's there, and probably it escaped from a lab in Wuhan. Okay, but we should speak about vitamin D3 supplementation. We should speak of zinc and vitamin C orally, and the drug ivermectin probably is a very, very powerful drug which has been used in Africa for billions of people. It's an anti-worm medication, very cheap, very well tolerated. So I think, and intravenous vitamin C. If patients have the SARS, the sudden acute respiratory distress syndrome, high dose vitamin C IV will solve the problem. We know this, but nobody talks about it. They all talk about remdesivir, and if they intubate the patients, that's it. So they should use pressurized mask, use corticosteroids, ideally inhalative, to fight the cytokine storm. Use blood thinners, probably the good old low molecular weight heparin, to prevent the blood clotting. And then we could get the patient out of the intensive care within a week. I'm sure.
Well, you and I both lived through the AIDS epidemic, and it was all of a sudden they had all these patients with AIDS. We treated them with love and with care and respect. And that is not what's being done right now. They're put on, when someone gets on a ventilator, they're put in a room and no one darkens the door. And I know that I personally had a nurse that worked for us, and he was in ICU for 14 days and no one changed his bed or gave him a bath. I mean, that's unbelievable.
Right. We don't know what's going on with this, but honestly, something is wrong. Something is severely wrong, and to introduce mandatory vaccinations. I'm proud of the United States of America, because I heard from a couple of states where the governors of the state says, look, in our state, we will never have mandatory vaccination, and we will not also engage in this very questionable, stupid lockdown and force our poor children under the masks.
I know. That is a very tender subject to me, because we actually can prove with the oxygenation testing that you lose 30% of your oxygen wearing a mask.
No, and children don't see faces anymore, and the neurophysiologists already are alarming us and saying, look, we have problems in the development of the brain of our children, of millions of children. They don't see the face anymore. So they don't develop certain capacities to socialize, to be compassionate, to have feelings, because they just see a mask. So what's happening here is, honestly, it is sinister, and I think it is completely wrong what the world community is doing.
I do too. I agree with you.
So, Dr. Kleef,
and I think the only way how we will stop this hype, we have to bring the science back to the table, because what's now happening is completely unscientific. It is hyped, and we are ruled by politicians who didn't even study medicine.
We are. I guarantee. That there is no science. A lot of stuff.
And one day, hopefully, people will stand up. They will stand up and say, "Look, we will not accept this hype anymore." Okay, but sorry, this was not about COVID, but it touches all of us, and I would never thought that I would ever in my life find a situation where science has no words and stories have a word. This is not backed by good science. the good science is in integrative approaches, like in vitamin C and ivermectin. This is good science.
That is good science.
Yeah.